All right, folks. So, a thing that's been on my mind lately has been the topic of mechanical accuracy of a weapon versus the practical accuracy of a weapon, and exactly what I mean by those terms, and how they can affect your perception and your ability to shoot accurately with a particular weapon system. So. Let's just get right into it. What do I mean by mechanical accuracy? So when I say mechanical accuracy, to me that means the maximum potential best accuracy that a given weapon is capable of doing in a mechanical sense. That means independent of all other human factors. Basically, if you had a pistol that was sitting perfectly and having nothing else affecting it whatsoever, using whatever kind of ammunition you were trying to test, and no other factors affecting its accuracy whatsoever. What is the gun um, uh, basically capable of doing all by itself? That's what I mean by mechanical accuracy. By practical accuracy, I mean what is the shooter capable of getting out of the chosen weapon system, chosen firearm, um, given all kinds of factors like skill of shooting, ergonomics of the weapon, the trigger pull of the weapon, um, putting undue pressure somewhere on the weapon, and basically how you shoot it and what you are personally capable of doing with that gun. And the reason why this matters is because there's a very, very large disconnect between what a weapon is mechanically capable of doing, accuracy wise, and what a person is capable of doing with that weapon. And that can definitely color people's perception of a certain gun, saying that, oh, this gun is inaccurate or that gun is inaccurate. When really there are so many factors that go into um, accuracy of a weapon system. So to provide an extreme example, you could have a gun that is capable of having absolutely great, phenomenal accuracy all by itself. But if it has horrible ergonomics, if the trigger pull is super, super heavy, if the sights aren't good, if the ammo is not good, if you take all those factors together, which there's a lot of when it comes to accuracy of a weapon, and it's not very shootable, then the practical accuracy of that gun is pretty bad. Um, on the other hand, though, there are very few and far between cases where a gun is not mechanically more accurate than the ability of the shooter. I very, very rarely have seen cases like that. In pretty much all modern production firearms are going to be more mechanically accurate than a shooter is capable of doing, or what the ammo itself is capable of doing. But I don't want to get too much into the nitty gritty, every single detail, every single factor that goes into a gun's mechanical and practical accuracy, because there's tons. But I do want to hit some of the high points. And we'll start with a good example of pistols. So pistols have a lot of different kinds of operating systems and how they work. The most common system that we see today is a Browning action tilting barrel action. So like a 1911 and all other action derivatives based off of that platform. So with these have a tilting barrel system. As you can see right there, the barrel is tilted up when this slide is all the way in the back. So when this fires, slide goes back, barrel tilts up, action unlocks, etc. And these in general now have pretty decent accuracy, to be honest, pretty decent mechanical accuracy, but they are usually, I'm speaking in very general terms here. This doesn't apply to every single firearm, every single situation possible, but in general terms, the more moving parts you have in a firearm, especially when it comes to the barrel and the action of the weapon, the less mechanically accurate it is going to be. So this is certainly the case with pistols. So this tilting barrel action, in general, can tend to be less mechanically accurate than a fixed barrel gun. For instance, this Makarov here. This Makarov has a fixed barrel. The barrel does not move on this at all. So the slide will just go back and forth, and the barrel does not tilt, does not move. It stays in place. And fixed barrels typically are more mechanically accurate than a tilting action. And then of course you have some oddballs like the Beretta 92 style of actions, the Walther P38, P1, and the P5 actions, which the barrel does move, but very slightly as compared to a Browning tilting barrel action. The whole slide and barrel assembly moves back together as one, a very short distance, and then there's a block in here that moves up and down, and that's what cycles the weapon. But these tend to be a very good compromise between what the action is capable of shooting and mechanical accuracy. So. And then, of course, some other pistols have a rotating barrel design. I do not personally have a pistol that has a rotating barrel design, but those tend to be pretty mechanically accurate as well, despite the fact that the barrel is literally rotating in the action. They tend to be pretty accurate. But let's talk a bit in terms of practical accuracy when it comes to some of these pistols designs. So this is HKP30L, all stock, no modifications done to it at all. And I will say that this was always designed to be a duty weapon. So it has a duty trigger. And what do I mean by that? So by duty trigger, I mean that the double action tends to be pretty heavy, not enormously heavy, but pretty heavy. And the single action tends to not be super light, but also not super heavy either. It's not what you'd consider a super light hair match trigger or something like that, but it gets the job done. So given the ergonomics, the sights, and everything else, and the inherent mechanical accuracy of this gun, the practical accuracy tends to not be the highest, at least for me. So it is a duty intended weapon. Your ability, the shooter's ability to shoot that weapon accurately varies obviously from shooter to shooter, but in general, duty style weapons like this are not going to be as practically accurate as, say, a match target race gun. So, but a weird example of some pretty good practical accuracy though is this pistol right here. So this is Walther P5, and this has adjustable sights in the rear for windage, and it has an excellent single action trigger. And given these grips here as well that I've put on here, that has that nice target ledge for my thumb, most people look at this and say, well, this doesn't have very good practical accuracy because it is also a duty weapon. It has a pretty short sight radius. It was never meant to be a target gun, so the practical accuracy of this would be, acceptable, but not super great. But for me, when I do shoot this and I use pretty good ammunition, my best practical accuracy I got with this pistol was a 1.2 inch group at 25 yards standing, not supported at all. So the practical accuracy for me, for this pistol anyways, is very high. And that's why I like this gun a lot. Despite everything else that says that it should not be that accurate, this consistently has proven to be one of the most accurate pistols I have ever shot. And of course, the only reason why it's capable of having that high level of practical accuracy is also because it has the mechanical ability, potential to be that accurate, which is great, which is awesome. So another example of another duty weapon is, obviously this Makarov here. This has very high potential mechanical accuracy because of the high quality of engineering materials used, the fixed barrel design. You ask anybody that knows Makarovs well, and they'll tell you that Makarovs tend to be quite accurate for how dinky and diminutive these things tend to look. There's nothing about these things when you look at them that suggests that this is a high quality pistol. This thing will be super accurate, right? How good can a Comblock design weapon from forever ago, how can that be any good, right? But these are actually pretty decent pieces. Surprisingly so, in fact, and the first Makarov I bought was a Bulgarian. That thing absolutely totally surprised me with how accurate those things are, especially with just bulk, regular, like steel case, Makarov ammo. That thing was crazy accurate for what it was. So there are certainly exceptions to the practical accuracy trend when it comes to pistols and weapons in general. So that was pistols. So in pretty much all cases, but I'm speaking obviously in very general terms here, so don't take it as like super gospel, but in general, most pistols, at least all of the ones that I've seen, are more mechanically accurate, have more mechanical potential for accuracy than the shooter is capable of doing. So like I said, if all factors were taken out of a pistol's potential mechanical accuracy, they will pretty much always be, that mechanical accuracy will always be higher than the practical accuracy of that gun. So, but practical accuracy, like I said, varies per shooter, what they're capable of doing, their experience levels, the ergonomics of the gun, so on and so forth. But there's a lot of factors that go into practical accuracy. So, but let's also get into the rifle section of it. So I have two examples here of just a regular no frills AR. This one here is built by Armalite, original Armalite, OG Armalite. And when it comes to rifles, there's obviously much different operating systems that lend to or take away from the maximum potential mechanical accuracy of a rifle. And one of the biggest phrases you see get tossed around is free float barrels. So a free float barrel is basically a barrel that is only attached to the receiver and is not touching anything else, in very general terms. So like this AR, for instance, is not a free float barrel because you have a big old gas block here, and you have this handguard attached to the delta ring there. This is not a free float barrel. So pretty much in theory, the maximum potential mechanical accuracy of this rifle is less than what it would be versus an AR that had a free float barrel, free float handguard, etc. In practical terms, have I really noticed a difference between the free float barrels, expensive barrels, that kind of setup versus the more traditional non-free float? I haven't really noticed a huge difference in terms of practical accuracy, because this rifle right here, actually all of my ARs except for my Palmetto State ones have been able to achieve sub MOA with the right ammunition, the right conditions, the right optics, basically as perfect of conditions and shooting ability that I was able to achieve at that time. I was able to get sub MOA out of this rifle and also my Aero Precision 20-incher that is gussied up to look like a M16A4. So basically, like no crazy frills, no free float anything. I mean, this thing is about as basic as you can get for a AR carbine, and getting sub MOA out of this is pretty dang impressive if you ask me. Now and that really speaks volumes to the level of quality control, the level of quality materials and craftsmanship and quality that goes into some of the mid-tier and higher-end ARs out there. In a lot of cases, you do get what you pay for. In some cases, you don't. But like a Palmetto State upper, for instance, the carbine 16-inch upper that I have from Palmetto State, the best accuracy I could get out of that was 2.5 MOA with the same ammunition that I got sub MOA out of this gun. So the inherent mechanical accuracy, at least as far as I can tell, is much lower than this gun here. And like I said, there's a million and one factors that go into potential mechanical accuracy for a gun, but in general, it's pretty much easy to say that the quality, the craftsmanship, the quality materials used, etc., all those things, all those factors go into your potential maximum accuracy for a rifle. So, like I said, in most cases you get what you pay for. In some cases you don't. I mean, Palmetto State Armory ARs are cheap for a reason. That doesn't mean that they don't work, and they can't, put holes in dudes or in paper if you need to. But in terms of maximum potential mechanical accuracy, this Armalite definitely blows out any PSA AR I have seen or used. So let me get into another example here of a kind of semi-free float barrel, and that's my PTR 91. And I say semi-free float because it is not truly free float, but there's not really a whole lot that is affecting the barrel harmonics of this rifle, and the results are definitely evident when I shoot this thing. So for rifles in general, the less that you have touching the barrel, the less that you have affecting or warping the basically the harmonics of the rifle, the more accurate it can be. So you see this a lot with those really, really fancy like match target rifles, or the very expensive bolt action type rifle setups. All of them are pretty much free floated, or in some way they have some kind of accuracy enhancing like stock system setup, where the barrel is basically sitting as freely as it can, independent of everything else, even with a stock forend, like a handguard that sits out here. It's designed, the good ones are designed in such a way that even if you do rest it or you hold it on a bench or something like that, that it's not going to affect the barrel harmonics and affect your accuracy. So the mechanical potential accuracy of this particular rifle is quite high, as I've seen, despite it being a very, very old design from the 50s. I have repeatedly gotten sub-MOA out of this rifle with the correct match grade ammunition, usually Federal Gold Medal match. Very, 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 very good stuff. Using this 3x fixed optic here, I've gotten sub-MOA plenty of times before, and that's why I really, really like this gun. So, despite all the moving parts and everything else that goes into this thing, and the bolts and everything else, I guess the complexity of the operating system, it still lends itself to being quite an accurate rifle. At least more accurate than any service rifle really needs to be, but that's a debate for another day about how accurate your service rifle needs to be. Just hit the table there. So, but another example for a rifle operating system that I don't have right now is a kind of like a rotating bolt. So if you look on M14s and Mini 14s, they have a kind of a more complicated operating system, at least as far as to moving parts when it comes to the bolts and things like that. And there has been endless debates on and on for years whether or not that makes a less or more accurate system. I'm just going to tell you from my experience, every Mini 14 I've handled and shot has not been as accurate as a similarly priced AR like this one. This AR cost me $750 out the door, and if you gave me a regular no frills Mini 14, that costs pretty much around the same as this, I would tell you straight up, the Mini 14 is not going to be as accurate as that AR. No way, not even close. And I've had two Mini 14s, and usually the accuracy I would get out of them, even with an optic, is hovering somewhere around the 3 to 4 MOA mark. Sometimes 2 if I was really, really, really taking my time using really, really good ammunition. But in general, with your regular 55 grain stuff, 3 to 4 MOA. But usually worse, because Mini 14s are just not that accurate, at least for me. And there's a lot of factors that go into that. Like I said, quality material, quality parts, quality craftsmanship, the inherent mechanical accuracy of that kind of operating system, how well made the barrel is, all those factors for the potential mechanical accuracy of Mini 14s is not as good as a AR of the same cost. So, but there's 1,000,001 different kinds of operating systems out there for rifles, way more than pistols are. But I think I've kind of made the point clear enough that the differences between maximum potential mechanical accuracy of a firearm versus the practical accuracy, what the shooter is capable of doing. So um, people don't seem to know that there definitely is a difference between those two things. And in most cases, the rifle, the rifle or pistol, the weapon system will be more accurate than the shooter is capable of doing, especially with certain kinds of ammunition. So ammunition obviously plays a large role into your maximum potential accuracy because there absolutely is a difference between the qualities of ammunition. Tula steel case, wolf steel case will not shoot anywhere near as accurately as high-end, high-quality brass or like dedicated match or hunting rounds. It just won't. Bulk ammunition is not made to be super accurate. It's made to shoot stuff for practice, plinking, target shooting, that kind of thing. Match ammunition is obviously intended for matches, so they need to be as accurate as reasonably possible. So without costing, of course, $4 to $5 a round, but kind of depends on the caliber you're shooting as well. But even a lot of high-end competitors hand load pretty much all their own ammo, anyways. But that's a story for a different day. So anyway, high points are most weapons will be more mechanically accurate than the practical accuracy potential of a shooter. Ammunition choice does affect your accuracy immensely. Different operating systems have different levels, capabilities of maximum potential mechanical accuracy, and build quality of materials, craftsmanship, just overall quality does affect potential mechanical accuracy as well. Sometimes you get what you pay for, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you can be more accurate than the weapon itself, but that's usually pretty rare. I covered some of the concept of free float for rifles and whether or not that makes a difference. It does, but whether or not you see that in your own practical accuracy for that weapon, that's really more up to the shooter and what you're capable of doing. So don't assume just because you have a free float barrel that you're magically going to shoot, much tighter groups. You still need to practice with your gun. You still need to practice with the correct ammo, the right setup, and everything to get the maximum possible practical accuracy that you can out of your weapon. So lastly, the reason why that's so important is because if you understand and know the maximum potential mechanical accuracy of your weapon, then basically your goal when you're shooting is to practice more and more to the point where your practical accuracy is getting closer and closer to that maximum potential mechanical accuracy of that weapon. And that's always been my personal philosophy with training and shooting firearms is closing that gap between the practical accuracy and the mechanical accuracy. The more you close that gap, the better you're going to be with that gun. The more performance you can squeeze out of it, the tighter groups you're going to get, the faster you can go. All of those great things that you want to do with your firearms. But you need to know what that maximum potential mechanical accuracy is to have some measure of understanding if you're getting better, or if you're getting better troubleshooting your weapon for either mechanical failures, mechanical flaws, ammunition and how it performs, because every ammunition type is going to perform differently in your weapon. Always test it. And as a way for you to see that, hey, maybe I am actually shooting better than this gun is capable of doing. I've had that happen to me very rarely, maybe 1 or 2 times total on all the firearms I've owned before, but it is possible. So, like I said, if you approach your firearm training to, like I said, closing that gap, it's a very satisfying feeling to be able to gauge yourself and say, hey, I'm actually getting better at this with this particular weapon system, and I'm getting closer and closer to that maximum potential mechanical accuracy. So it really gives you a gauge as well for the more maximum potential mechanical accuracies that you can figure out of certain weapon systems and certain brands. It really gives you a gauge for quality for that weapon, and if you really are getting what you're paying for, and the value that each dollar that you put into a certain weapon system is going to get you. AKs are a notorious example of this, of maybe not getting what you're paying for, but that's a topic for a different day. Anyway, so that's my personal philosophy and take on why it's important to understand maximum potential mechanical accuracy of a firearm versus your own practical accuracy with said firearm, and why you really should get better and how to gauge that, and so on and so forth. So anyway, I rambled on long enough, but hopefully that covered the topic, at least somewhat generally in general terms. So hopefully this helps people out there and they take something useful from this. So all right, we'll catch you next time.